how I made a river for my Osgiliath modular board. Hi there and welcome to Good Enough Scenery, and in today's video I will be showing you exactly how I made these two very different river tiles. So one with just everything falling apart and one with the piers as well. And not only that, they are once again modular within modular, because these here can be removed, the places can be switched, and then you have a slightly different board. I'll be showing those in a later video, but for now, let's get into how I made the modular river. So unlike the other tiles in this build, which started with a 20mm base and then a 10mm on top, we're going to have a 10mm base with 20mm on top, but not across the whole way. So I've cut two strips which are the same length as the tile, and these are 50mm wide, deep, whatever. We'll do some more with this in a bit, but before we do that, we're going to concentrate on these. So we're going to start by rolling with tin foil to give it some texture. That's going to go across the whole thing. So we've got a bit of texture on here. Next thing is to choose a favourite side, and I don't think one is either better than the other. I've got my brick roller here. You could do this with a knife and carve in individual bricks, but given that these are little bricks to match with the other little bricks, I'm not going to do that. So all you have to do here is make sure that you're rolling in a pretty straight line, which I feel like I sometimes make harder than it needs to be. Just get on with it. Definitely went horribly wrong there. It's not that hard, just roll it in a straight line, Chris. Already looking more like it. So we'll do the top to match up with the edge of the tiles, which is a 1cm square thing, and 1cm squares. So I'm going to put this in line with my grid mat here, which has got centimetre marked, and I'm going to go along and I'm going to put a mark on every single centimetre here. Then I'm going to flip it and then do the same on the other side. So we've got marks every 1cm on this side of this one and this side of this one. So if I line them up, then I can save myself a bit of a job by doing 2 in 1. So just drawing a line through from one to the next across both sides. Bit of firm pressure with a biro just to indent it, just like I've done in previous things. So I'm going to go all the way across there, and then I'm going to measure a centimetre intervals here, and I'm going to do the perpendicular ones as well. So next time you see these will be all griddy. Which is probably not a word. Don't care. Griddy. Well, won't you look at that? It's all griddy, just like I promised. So next up we are going to paint the bricks, and we're going to do so in it's mine. You don't own me. You don't own this. My undercoat colour here. The top is going to be white. Trying not to go onto that white. Yeah, just going to give a base coat of this to begin with. Now I'm going to do a base coat of white on all of this grid stuff. Got a makeup brush here, and it's just literally going to cover the whole thing, the whole top. So this base coat is dry on the top here, and I've got a dark grey wash, which I'm just going to cover the entire thing in. And after that I will be dry brushing it. I'm going to dry brush this whole thing in white, so I'm going to start with the bricks here. A lot of this is going to be underwater anyway, so more than anything else to make it consistent with the rest of the board. And I'm going to do the top as well. Much more a dry brush than when we did the base coat earlier. Actually trying to just pick out the detail by keeping the brush perpendicular. There we go. Now I'm tempted to do something really clever with this river in terms of modularity and having bits interchangeable in the water itself. So I've cut these blocks. So these are 4cm square, and they are 1.5cm tall, and I've got these other two over here which are 10cm by 4cm, which are essentially these with a thing in the middle. Now what I'm going to try and do, and it has worked on a test piece, is cut out a perfectly square hole from the middle of this using a hot wire cutter. Could use a knife. I think I can get a decent level of accuracy using the hot wire cutter, so this is how I'm going to do it. On the lowest heat possible, I set this gauge to 1 centimetre, and I'm going to slide this, let it slowly cut. I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to push this until I hit the 30mm mark on the other side, which is there. I'm going to stop, I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to do the same thing again, not rushing it, just letting it go through. I get to 30, which is there, and rotate it. Last one, just going to turn it on quickly just to wire out again. End up with a cut like that, and a piece that I can take out, which is, it's not exactly square. I think these corners could, push these corners, or push all the sides in a bit. Take advantage of the fact that this foam compresses. But I'm going to do that on the other ones. I think that, and all that's probably going to happen is this is probably going to be trimmed down ever so slightly, but not a huge amount. We'll see. But I'm going to do that on these 4. I also want to do the same thing on these. And I could do it as 4s, but let's try to think how. No, I've changed my mind. I'm going to turn these into 4s as well. So there'll be 6 of these when you next see them. No, 8 of these when you next see it. Let me explain what's going to happen with these things that I've made. So I've got the square things with square holes, and also I'm going to be making a couple of boards. Now these are going to act as, you know, in the main board I've got the big squares which buildings lots into. These are going to have the pegs which hold scenery in place. So these are going to hold any bridges or scattered terrain which is going to go on the river. So it's important that these are accurately placed. So it's going to be, just to kind of roughly show, we're going to have 2 there like that, then acting as, supposedly act as pairs like that in the middle, and then on the far edges which are going to be off camera. But basically the idea is going to be 4 places in which bridges can just be slotted in and moved around. So it's important to get the position of these not perfectly accurate, but as accurately as we possibly can. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So starting with this edge one, so let's checking this is 30 centimetres. So we know that I'm going to put a mark here at 15. We want it to be 1 centimetre in from the edge, which is along here. I want it to be 2 centimetres either side of the centre, so let's continue this centre line. Probably not coming up on camera, but I've created a score mark that shows like a C, so hopefully if I put this up against it, show exactly where that one is going to go. So that's how I'm going to put down that one, and at the opposite end, and the same on the other tile. That will be 4 of them. A little more difficult to positioning these centrally, halfway, which will be here, the halfway point between there. So I've got the dead centre of the board sorted out. I need to be centimetre gap, just like we had on this here. Accurately position them. So I'm going to do the same, exact same thing on the other tile, and then hopefully we'll have 8 things down, or 4 pairs of things essentially, but split pairs. And in terms of gluing it down, I've got the hot glue gun on a lower setting, heat-wise, and just essentially going to go for it really. Where it's split there, I'm not even going to try and glue that together. I'm just going to make sure that there is glue all around. So that one going in there, I'm going overboard with how much glue, taking my time to line it up with these carefully measured things, pressing it down. We have it. We'll find out later on whether I've measured that accurately or not. So we know that we're going to have a strip along here, come out to there, have a strip along there, come out to there. Everything else outside of that, I'm just going to give a quick roll with a tin foil ball just to create a little bit of a texture. So everything kind of past there and there, just a bit of a roll. I'm going to push down fairly firmly in the centre bit so create some extra depth. This is going to be filled in with all sorts of rubble and stuff, but just make it look a little different. So that's all done, so just to give it a bit more life, I'm going to go over it with some white paint. And chances are that a huge amount of this is going to be covered up with rubble anyway, so this is more than anything just to stop it being just dull. Something like that will be fine, so I will now leave that to dry. Now stick these side pieces down. Use our hot glue gun for this. Looks a lot better when it's hot. Come on you! That glue down, it's just a case of lining it up with the ends, and lining up with the sides. Some weight on it. Same on the other edge. The rolling pin's out and that can only mean one thing. It's time to cause some damage. So in these middle sections here, I want there to be areas which have collapsed. So it'll be a case of smacking it in a few places. Something like that. And then any bits that are half broken off are going to pull off entirely. And that can go towards, I'll have a bit more broken there. Obviously you don't have to smack it with a rolling pin, you can use a knife and whatever. So a bit more control with it. More or less when it comes to doing damage I can just make it up as I go along. Just whatever feels right in the moment. So I'm kind of happy with that. I know that there's going to be a bridge or potential of a bridge across there, maybe there. And there's going to be some areas of rubble throughout, but that's how you make damage. You smack your hard work with a rolling pin. So I've got all sorts of offcuts here and stacking them around the board, because essentially what I'm trying to do is fill in this area of river as much as possible, because the more I fill in with stuff, the less resin I'm going to have to use. So up against these bits here, these are going to get covered over by bridge pieces and whatever, and a lot of rubble. So I'm not trying to get perfect angles or anything, and all I'm going to be doing is just applying some glue and sticking it down and moving on to the next one. So I've done that around different places. Cut off this big bit to have as a somewhere in the middle that can be crossed, and back here I've got all sorts of just random offcuts which I have rolled with tin foil to make a bit more rocky looking. And essentially what I'm going to be doing from here is just randomly sticking down stuff. So this big bit here, side on a good angle, I think something like that, roughly there. Seems like a good position. So yeah, just sticking down all the bits you can see where they are, and just randomly chucking other bits down as well, ready for rubble going on top of it. So just sticking bits down. So that's the first stage of making the river a bit more full and a bit more believable as a river. And now that this is all stuck down, I'm going to dry brush all of the stuff that I've just put down, just to bring that to life a bit. It's all going to get covered in some stuff anyway, but just so there's a bit more life of what you can see. Particularly the bits here and here that are going to be sticking up more and more of a part of it. Most of it is going to be underneath the resin height anyway. So here I've got various different offcuts of foam. Most of them are roughly 2 centimetres by 1 centimetre, which is the size that the building's bricks will be made out of, if I'd made them out of bricks, but I didn't. Some of them are much smaller, and they've all been painted with the same base colour as this. Now, they are not going to finish up this colour, but my plan is to stick loads of these down in various places to look like buildings have collapsed into the river, parts of the bridge have collapsed, etc. And then once they're in place, I'm going to dry brush it just like I did with this, but it was easier, I think, to paint these first and then dry brush them in place rather than dry brush individual bricks. That's my thinking anyway. So this is good. They're going to be rubble around kind of this area, lots of rubble around this area. That's the thinking, but having said that, there isn't going to be a lot of thinking going on. It's very much just going to be take a piece and glue it down. Now, the only important thing I need to be thinking of is that there are going to be bridge things going here, so I need to make sure I'm not going around above this height around here, because there's going to be building footprint on top of that. So that's the only thing I've really got to be thinking about. Other than that, I can just quite freely just put some glue on a thing and then chuck it down, much like I'm doing right now. This is where I've got to. It looks not great with it being that bright Aztec stone yellow, but it's not going to stay like that. Now, that's the majority of the chunky big pieces down. I'll show you how I'm going to be putting down kind of smaller pieces. Now, you can use something like PVA, but it doesn't hold as well as you'd like it to, really. So what I've been doing you get a bunch of stones, bits of foam as they actually are, and get a clump, and let's say I want to put down some here, what I'm doing is I'm just putting a bit of hot glue down there, and then just pushing the stones, calling them stones again, they're not stones, they are bits of foam to there, and that gives it, not all of those are going to stick, but you can do a few of these, tip the whole thing upside down, and then repeat. It's better than trying to individually glue. You know, if you're trying to put hot glue on this, it's fine if you like having burnt skin, so I'm going to do, that's what I'm doing with the smaller ones. But now this stuff is down, we can give it some semblance of a dry brush. And the majority of this is going to be under resin anyway, so the colour's not really going to be that important, but I think that getting it closer to the other is a good thing to do, etc. Dry brushing is dry. You can put some glue down for flock and rubble. Lots of glue has to go down. The good thing about PVA is it does dry clear, so you can't really put too much, well you can put too much down, but you can't really put too much down. So these areas here where I've not tried to make this look special at all, I think it's really important that plenty of rubble goes down on the joins and stuff, probably all along the edges and all around the rubble piles and basically everywhere. There's a whole bunch of glue down. Now let's start adding some stuff. So this is some dark earth scatter. Now I'm going to try and concentrate on the areas that I've considered to be more rocky. So there's not a lot of places, to be honest, but I might just do some in the open areas as well. It's obviously not all of that is going to hit glue, so it's all roughly where I want it to be, so now it's there. I'm going to give it a shake. Alright, next up we're going to go for the heavier stuff. This is bits of foam which have been painted. It's flock and it's sand, so it's a kind of crumbly, rubbly mess which you will not be surprised to find out it's going to go around the rubble. So quite a lot of this going down. Once again, most of this is not going to be hitting glue, so let's shake it up. Now it's down, I'm going to put some spray on it. This is watered down. So that's absolutely soaked. I've got some greystone flock. I'm going to use a lot of this because it's really going to break up this this colour that's down. So I'm going to leave that in the sun to dry out, and then I'll see what I think of it. Not a million miles away from pouring resin into this, but first we need to make sure the resin doesn't fall out of the side here. So to do that, I'm going to create a dam using acetate sheet. I'll put a link for this in the description, but I just cut a link for this which is long enough to make sure that the dam is, the whole thing is completely covered, and then I'm going to attach it and block it all off using UV resin. So this is resin which, as you might have guessed for the name, gets set off by UV light. So I've got a UV torch. Alternatively, you can leave it in the sun, but use a torch. So I've got that nicely positioned there. So I'm going to hold it up against here like this, and then just put some along here, and then get the torch on that. That sets off pretty quickly. With a little pull, you see that that's now stuck there. I'm going to build it up the sides as well, that, and across onto this side as well, and the same on the other side. So I've mixed up some resin, which I've done, added some green and brown to it to make it murky like I have on the other tiles, and a few tips for resin. So have something underneath, is just some spare cardboard. Also got an ice cream tub, can be anything, just to lift that up away from the surface, because if it does leak out of any of the dams or out underneath the side of the foam or anything, then it will drip down onto the cardboard rather than kind of drip down and stick this to the cardboard. Neither's good, it's better if it's not attached. So this isn't going to be enough to fill the whole thing, I very much doubt, but yeah, enough to get us started. So I'm just going to tip some in and see where we get to. And the ultimate goal is to pour it up to the height of our blocks here. All this is going to do is provide a starting pour what it looks like going in. I really like the look of it in terms of it being exactly what I want it to look like. So yeah, we'll leave that and mix up some more. So our resin is set. Now to make it look more water-like, because this looks nice and still as water, but water moves around. So I've got some Viejo diorama effects water texture, and this stuff, as you may have seen me use before, it's kind of like glue. So with this, I'm just going to be spreading it around covering the whole thing. So putting it down first of all, and then once it's down, just doing like a gentle stipple effect. And this stuff dries pretty much clear, but because of how it goes down, it starts to change how the water or resin looks. So yeah, I'm going to do this kind of thing across the entirety of the surface, and I'll show you that once it's dried. And here is that completed river tile. So you can see the top surface now not completely shiny. It is now looking more like a river, and hopefully more like moving water. So this is the second tile, and as you can see, this isn't starting from scratch, but so much of it was similar in terms of how it was made compared to the first one that I've not bothered to show you these stages. So you've got the same kind of peg things here. You've got kind of 3 bits here sticking out. You haven't got a full thing there, and that's because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building piers out of these wooden things. Now these are going to be 3 inches long, and they're going to be constructed using different lengths of this as well as different shapes. So you may have seen in previous videos how I make wooden planks. I want to show you how I'm going to make wooden posts. So I've got some 10mm XPS foam, and I'm going to eyeball a 10mm line here, 10mm cuboid roughly, and from here I'm going to start rolling it, which makes a slightly unpleasant noise. After a while it starts to actually roll rather than... So it goes from being a cubey rectangle type cross section to being very nearly round. And once it is very nearly round, you can take your wire brush and do what you would do with planks. I'm just going to drag this along the length and cut it into lengths. So I've made another one earlier, so I'm going to make these roughly the same. These one slightly longer, but yeah, that's how I'm making posts. Next up with these posts is just to paint them brown, like that, and then all of the rest of these. So let me show you how these are going to get made. So I've got some rounded off ones here, I've got some slightly thicker planks here, and some slightly thinner ones here. Now these are 3 centimeters or slightly bigger. These are 3 inches because I'm in the UK and I move between them freely, and these are 4 centimeters. And the construction is pretty simple really. So I'm going to take any 2 of these and place them this far apart. So however long this is, and I've kind of varied the length ever so slightly, but however long this is how far apart these go. Take our hot glue gun, and we're going to put a bit of glue, not a lot, so that this can be glued at a height of 2, so the top of it is at about 2 centimeters. And then unsurprisingly we're going to do the same over here, and then we're going to do the same on these 2 here. So this pin is actually on the inside of it, so when it's together it's going to be like that. Place some glue across the end of here, one of these, and we're going to glue one of these. Now the construction of this is not going to be particularly strong, but this is going to be placed into the river, and then the resin's going to be forming around it, so it doesn't actually need to be even slightly strong. Now from here you can have some fun putting these down in terms of the gap between the things. You can have some that are broken, just leave them as they are, just getting a plank and just sticking it down wherever feels right. These are just going to have to be trimmed down just a little bit, which I'm just going to do by ripping it. Just one final one over here, and there we have a little pier thing into our river, something like that. So I don't know the exact positioning, but something like that. So I'm going to make another 3 of them. I might create some variety and brokenness, which I'll show you once they're made. So I want to make one that's really broken up. So I'm going to start with, as I would normally, one of these, and I take a slightly shorter one of these, break up the end a bit with my hand, place there, and see what smaller off-cut bits I've got here. I'm going to take a few of these and just cut them at a length I'm not really thinking about, and it's going to glue one edge on, kind of just let that kind of rest like that. Meanwhile, I think what I'm going to do with it is that's going to get glued having fallen down, and I think that these kind of shorter ones I've made here, maybe one there, I think I'll do a tiny bit of post there and like that. I think I'm just going to have this glued in place, so that's going to have fallen down and that's going to be glued in place, and then I'll put some posts where they would be if the thing hadn't have broken. So we've got our one that we started with, one here that's just a bit more jaggedy, one here that's got a really broken end section, and then this one here will be something like that, mostly submerged in the water. That post I'll glue into place there, and then just have a couple more posts and some wood laying around. That is the plan. And before I put the piers into place, I'm going to chuck down loads of bits of foam that have been rolled with tin foil just to fill in the space so I have to use less resin, as well as creating a more interesting atmosphere underneath the water. So all I'm doing is just chucking a load of glue down and then pressing down. I know where my piers are going to be, so as long as I'm not interfering in the position of them, it doesn't really matter. So the one thing I have decided is that I want this side of the thing to be more rocky and less, felt like the other side was really filled with lots of fallen bricks and stuff. I want this side to be kind of more organic or natural looking, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to get on with sticking loads of stuff down. So these bits are randomly stuck down, and that's going to dry brush it just to get some colour to the underneath, knowing full well that the majority of it is going to get covered in stuff anyway. So just like with the other piece, I've added some collapsed rubble here, not too much, just some, and none down here. I'm going to put down the pier pieces now. This is just going to be a case of hot glue on each post end. It's going pretty close to the end at this edge here, and not completely up to it, and then sticking out as hard as it sticks out. So like I said, I'm going to have one kind of broken one at each end. So I've kind of broken one here, so we'll match that up with not the broken one here. That, like I said before, it's not going to be the strongest thing in the world, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. I'm just going to break this a bit more, like that. Right, and this one be absolutely fine, and even the one over here to be broken. So let's start by gluing that there. That. The majority of this is going to be held in place by the fact that there's going to be resin all around it. So post about there, a post just over, and then one there like that. I'm and ahhing about whether I'm not going to. I am going to put some more wood bits down, but I'm going to wait until I've done more flock on the bottom there. But where we're up to at the moment, not loads needed, but I am just going to dry brush these ones I've put down just to get the colour a bit closer to the other ones. And I'm just going to do a very light dry brush on the wood here just to give it a bit more definition, and just towards the top of things as well, not everywhere. Just to add something a little bit different, I've got some of this viney type stuff, and my plan here is basically just to loosely place it around mainly the pier type bits. Had some colour and something a little bit different. So not even gluing this stuff to snags on anything, so not really trying to glue it on, just literally wrapping it and snapping it. So what I might do here, see, it's grabbed onto everything even when you don't want it to. Take some grabby pliers, grabby tweezers, and pull that through from the other side, just to wrap it up a bit more. Trying to keep it on towards the lower part of it, because I don't particularly want it on the surface. Maybe I do. I'll probably just let it do its own thing. Something like that, do that in a few places, can't hurt. So just like on the last board, I've put downs on either end, and next up I'm going to chuck a whole load of PVA down. And now that it's covered in glue, once again it's time to cover it in flock. So this rubble type stuff is obviously going to go around here. Jiggle, put some of this dark earth on the higher areas. Have a shake. And use a lot of this. Now this is a Battle Zone urban scatter, but if you look at it, it's just lots of different gravel sizes. I think this will be for the majority of the bottom of it. And give that a shake. And as before, we're going to give it a soak in, not Dettol, but water down glue, and then going to finish off the top with the grey rock. Okay, let's see how this resin bore goes. That's right, as I'm pouring resin. Gonna need some more. And here is the completed second tile with the piers and the water texture added now, filled up to the brim, well not quite the brim, with lovely epoxy resin, and that's how it looks across the whole board. But of course there is more. So the question you may be asking yourself is, do these actually work? Well, allow me to show you. I've got these couple of different bridges, one completely intact, one somewhat ruined, and let me show you that you can just simply slot them into place like that. And slot this one into place like that. But maybe you don't want them that way around, in which case you just pop them out and you can just switch them over, and all of a sudden you have a completely different board setup. So there we have just one of the many possible setups with the board with the river now included. So obviously in future videos I will be showing you how I am making the scatter terrain which goes on top of the modular river. But for now I'll leave you with that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed making the river. It's been a bit of a challenge at times, but yeah, overall the look of it has been well worth the effort. So please like the video, please leave any comments that you might have, good or bad. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. And let's not forget that when I hit 4,000 subscribers, I will be giving one lucky subscriber this Gondor mansion. So if you want to be in with a chance, then subscribe.